Between two worlds, the desert stretched endlessly in all directions, painted in shades of gold and amber by the late afternoon sun. Jack Harrison had been riding for 3 days straight, his horse's hooves leaving a steady rhythm against the hard-packed earth. The pack animals behind him carried supplies: flour, beans, blankets, and medicine bound for the Apache settlement in the canyon ahead. It wasn't the first time Jack had made this journey. For 2 years now, he had been trading with a small band of Apache who had made their home in the hidden valley beyond the Red Rocks. What had started as business had slowly become something more like friendship, built on mutual respect and the simple understanding that survival in this harsh land required cooperation between all who called it home. The sun was beginning its descent toward the western mountains when Jack saw the smoke rising from the canyon. But this wasn't the usual thin line of cooking fires. This was thick, black smoke that spoke of something burning that shouldn't be burning. Jack urged his horse forward, the pack animals following behind at a faster pace than they had maintained all day. As he crested the ridge that overlooked the Apache camp, his heart sank at what he saw below. Half the settlement was in flames. The careful arrangement of homes and work areas that had taken years to build was being consumed by fire that spread with terrifying speed. People were running everywhere, carrying what they could save, trying to organize bucket lines from the small stream that ran through the center of the canyon. Without hesitation, Jack spurred his horse down the steep path, leaving the pack animals to follow as best they could. He had loaded blankets and medical supplies, but right now the most important thing was getting those blankets wet and helping to fight the fire. Jack called a voice in English. He turned to see Running Wolf, one of the younger men who spoke both languages well. The fire started in the storage area. We cannot stop it. Jack dismounted quickly, pulling blankets from his pack and running toward the stream. Where are the elders, the children? Safe on the other side of the canyon, Running Wolf replied, helping to soak the blankets. But we are losing everything. For the next 4 hours, Jack worked alongside the Apache, fighting a fire that seemed determined to consume everything in its path. They saved what they could, but by the time the flames were finally beaten back, more than half the settlement lay in smoldering ruins. As the last embers were extinguished and night fell over the canyon, Jack found himself sitting beside the stream, exhausted and covered in soot. Around him, the Apache families were taking stock of what remained. It wasn't much. An elderly woman approached him through the gathering darkness. Her name was Evening Star, and she was the grandmother of many in the tribe, respected for her wisdom and her gift for healing. She moved with the careful dignity of someone who had seen many seasons but remained strong. Jack Harrison, she said in careful English, settling beside him on a flat rock by the water's edge. You stayed to help us fight the fire. You could have turned away and kept your goods safe. Jack looked up at her, seeing the exhaustion in her weathered face. This is your home. These are your people. I couldn't ride away and leave you to face this alone. Evening Star nodded slowly, studying his face in the flickering light of the small fires that had been built for warmth and cooking. You have a good heart, she said. This is the second time you have helped our people when we needed help most. Jack remembered the harsh winter 18 months ago, when he had shared his own food stores to help the tribe survive until spring. It hadn't been charity, it had been neighbors helping neighbors, but he could see that Evening Star remembered it differently. We help each other, Jack said simply. That's how people survive out here. Yes, Evening Star agreed. And now I must help you, as you have helped us. She was quiet for a long moment, looking out over the ruins of her people's home. When she spoke again, her voice carried the weight of careful consideration. Jack Harrison, you are a good man. You work hard, you deal honestly, and you have shown kindness to people who are not your own blood. These are the qualities that make a good husband and father. Jack felt a flutter of unease, unsure where this conversation was leading. Ma'am, Evening Star held up her hand, and he fell silent. You are alone in this world, yes. No wife, no children. That's true, Jack admitted. Haven't found the right woman, I suppose. And what would make a woman right for you? Jack considered the question seriously. Someone kind. Someone strong enough to handle the hard life out here. Someone I could respect and who could respect me in return. Evening Star smiled, and there was something in her expression that made Jack's pulse quicken with anticipation. I have a granddaughter, she said carefully. Her name is Morning Dove. She is 19 winters old, and she is all the things you speak of. She is kind to the children and gentle with the animals. She is strong, she can ride as well as any man and work from sunrise to sunset without complaint. She is skilled in the ways of healing and the ways of keeping a home. Jack felt his mouth Go dry, ma'am. I'm honored that you'd think she lost her husband in the sickness 2 winters ago. Evening Star continued. She has grieved properly, but she is young and should not spend her life alone. And you have proven yourself to be a man of honor. The elderly woman turned to look directly at Jack, her dark eyes serious and unwavering. Jack Harrison, you saved our people today. You have saved us before with your generosity and your friendship. In return, I offer you the greatest gift I can give, the hand of my granddaughter in marriage. Jack stared at her, speechless. This was not what he had expected when he set out 3 days ago with a load of supplies. Evening Star, I know what to say. Say you will consider it, the old woman replied. Mourning Dove is a good woman. She would make you a good wife, and you would make her a good husband. Your children would be strong and wise, walking in both worlds. But I'm not Apache, Jack said quietly. I don't know your ways, your customs. What would your people think? Evening Star smiled again, and this time there was warmth in it. Some of our young men have married women from other tribes, other peoples. Love and respect are the same in any language. As for our ways, Mourning Dove would teach you what you need to know, as you would teach her the ways of your world. She stood up slowly, her joints protesting the movement. Think on it, Jack Harrison. You do not have to answer tonight, but know that this offer comes from gratitude, yes, but also from wisdom. I have watched you for 2 years. I have seen your character. You would be welcome in our family. With that, Evening Star walked away, leaving Jack alone by the stream. With his thoughts in turmoil, the next morning dawned clear and bright. The smoke from the previous day's fire dissipated into the desert air. Jack woke to find that the Apache had already begun the work of rebuilding, salvaging what they could and planning what would need to be constructed new. As he helped carry water from the stream, he found himself looking for Mourning Dove among the workers. He had seen her before, of course, but always from a distance, always in the context of trade and polite conversation. Now, with Evening Star's words fresh in his mind, he saw her differently. She was indeed beautiful, with long black hair that caught the morning sunlight and dark eyes that seemed to miss nothing. But more than her beauty, he was struck by her quiet competence. She moved through the camp like someone who knew exactly what needed to be done and how to do it. She tended to an injured child with gentle hands, helped organize the food supplies, and carried heavy loads without complaint. When their eyes met across the camp, she didn't look away or blush like many young women might have. Instead, she regarded him with the same steady, evaluating gaze her grandmother had used. It was the look of someone taking measure, trying to understand who he really was beneath the surface. That afternoon, as Jack was preparing to unload his pack animals and distribute the supplies he had brought, Evening Star approached him again. This time, Mourning Dove walked beside her. Jack Harrison, Evening Star said formally, I would like you to meet my granddaughter, Mourning Dove, up close. Jack could see that Mourning Dove was indeed everything her grandmother had said, but he could also see something Evening Star hadn't mentioned: intelligence and strength of will that reminded him of the older woman herself. I am pleased to meet you properly, Mourning Dove said in careful but clear English. Her voice was soft but steady. My grandmother has told me of your kindness to our people. I'm pleased to meet you too, Jack replied, feeling suddenly awkward. I'm sorry about the fire, about what your people have lost. Mourning Dove nodded, her expression serious. Loss is part of life. What matters is how we rebuild, how we help each other in difficult times. Evening Star watched this exchange with satisfaction, then stepped forward. Jack Harrison, you have brought supplies when we have lost so much. This is kindness beyond what we could expect. She gestured toward the pack animals, then turned to face both Jack and her granddaughter. In return for your kindness, in gratitude, for your friendship and your help, I offer you the hand of Mourning Dove in marriage. She is willing, if you are willing. Together you would bridge 2 worlds, 2 ways of life. Your children would be blessed with the wisdom of both peoples. Jack felt the weight of the moment settle over him. This wasn't just about marriage, it was about family, about belonging, about finding his place in a world that often felt too big and too lonely. He looked at Mourning Dove, trying to read her expression. What do you think about this? He asked her directly. Mourning Dove was quiet for a moment, considering her words. I think, she said carefully, that my grandmother is wise. I think that you are a good man who has shown kindness to people who were strangers to you. I think that life is hard and uncertain, and that to people who respect each other can build something strong together. She paused, then added with the hint of a smile, I also think that it would be interesting to learn about your world, as you learned about ours. Jack felt something settle in his chest, a rightness he hadn't expected. "I would be honored," he said quietly, "if you would be my wife." Evening Star beamed, clapping her hands together once. "Good, this is very good. We will have the ceremony when the moon is full, in 4 days' time. That will give us time to prepare, and time for you both to know each other better." Over the next 4 days, Jack found himself drawn deeper into the life of the Apache camp. He worked alongside the men to rebuild what the fire had destroyed, learning techniques of construction and repair that were perfectly suited to the desert environment. In the evenings, he sat with the elders, listening to stories and slowly beginning to understand the complex web of relationships and traditions that held the community together. And he spent time with Morning Dove. They walked along the stream. In the early morning, when the air was cool and the light was soft, they worked side by side, rebuilding a storage shelter that had been completely destroyed. They sat together in the evenings, she teaching him words in Apache while he taught her more English. What surprised Jack most was how easy it was. He had always imagined that marriage would be complicated, full of mysteries he couldn't understand. But with Morning Dove, everything felt natural. She was practical without being cold, gentle without being weak, intelligent without being condescending. "Why did you agree to this?" he asked her one evening as they sat watching the sunset paint the canyon walls in brilliant reds and oranges. Morning Dove was quiet for a moment, braiding grass stems as she thought. "My grandmother is right that you are a good man," she said finally. "But that is not why I agreed." "Then why?" She looked at him directly, her dark eyes serious. "Because, when I watch you with our people, I see someone who understands that strength comes from helping others, not from taking what you want. I see someone who works hard and does not complain. I see someone who could be a good partner." She paused, then added more softly, "And because when I look at you, I think of the children we might have. I think they would be strong and kind, like their father." Jack felt his throat tighten with emotion. "I hope they would be wise and brave, like their mother." The wedding ceremony was unlike anything Jack had ever experienced. It took place at sunset on the 4th day, with the entire tribe gathered in a circle around them. There were words in Apache that he didn't understand but felt the power of, and rituals that seemed to bind not just him and Morning Dove, but both of them to the community that was becoming his family. When Evening Star placed Morning Dove's hand in his, speaking words of blessing in both Apache and English, Jack felt something shift deep in his soul. For the first time in his adult life, he wasn't alone. He had a wife, a family, a place where he belonged. As the celebration continued into the night, with drumming and singing and more food than Jack would have thought possible given the recent losses, he found himself sitting beside Morning Dove, watching their new family dance and laugh and welcome them into a life they would build together. "Are you happy?" Morning Dove asked quietly, leaning close enough that he could smell the sage and wildflowers in her hair. "Yes," Jack said, and meant it completely. "Are you?" Morning Dove smiled, and in that smile, Jack saw his future not just the next day, or the next year, but decades of companionship, of shared work and shared joy, of children who would indeed walk between two worlds with wisdom and strength. "Yes," she said simply, "I am home, and you are home. That is what matters." As the stars emerged in the clear desert sky, Jack Harrison understood that he had found something he hadn't even known he was looking for. He had come to the canyon with supplies and friendship, but he was leaving with love and a family and a future that stretched as wide and promising as the land around them. Between two worlds, he and Morning Dove would build a bridge of understanding, respect, and love that would last all the days of their lives.